get right to the climax in Mark, and here we've got Peter's failure. And let us remind ourselves again that this is, if the church fathers are correct, this was written by John Mark, but he was basically the scribe for Peter. So it just shows how much Peter had changed by the time he allowed this to be written. And it's another testimony as why I don't think this was ever created by people. No one would create a religion like this and make themselves such failures. And so here we have Peter. He's in the courtyard. We have this building and building. We've got Jesus now. He's let them know that he is the I Am. He's let them know that he is the king. He's the celestial king, but he's also the king on earth. He's going to take over. And they beat him and they whip him, and he shows through that, as we remember, that he's going to do it through suffering servant. Well, now we have Peter. He's outside in the courtyard. He's the one that has followed him. He was the one who said he would die with him. Unfortunately, we're going to find out he doesn't. He's sitting out there, and one of the servant girls of the high priest came. That's where he's right on the very periphery of where the servants stayed in the courtyard. And seeing Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said, "You were also with the Nazarene Jesus." They were known as a group of Nazarenes, by the way. That was their place. And she notices him. Jesus obviously was a figure that many people had listened to, but he denied it. Here's you got the 3 denials, 3 meaning complete. He denied it, saying, "I neither know nor understand what you mean." So he doesn't say he doesn't know him. He kind of fibs. He says, "I neither know nor understand what you mean." And he went outside into the gateway, and the rooster crowed. Now remember, Jesus prophesied the rooster would crow twice, and he doesn't seem to get it. He doesn't get it, at least at this point. And the servant girl saw him and began again to say to the bystanders, "This man is one of them." Now, of course, he's worried for his life. We have to remember, this is a revolutionary society. This is not just a guy denying Jesus. He's denying Jesus because if he accepts that he's with Jesus, he's no doubt that he's going to be crucified along with him. But again, he denies it. You got your second denial. And after a little while, the bystanders again, so now he's got a whole group around him, come to Jesus. "Certainly you're one of them, for you are Galilean." So his accent's given him away. Remember, the Galileans were quite noticeable in Jerusalem because they didn't generally go there. And Galilee was seen as an outcast, like an area you didn't want to be from. All right. Now this is where it gets really powerful. "But he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear." Now here's the problem with this interpretation. It doesn't say a curse on himself. It actually just says he began to invoke a curse. I think our interpreters are trying to be nice, but most commentators realize that because he doesn't put it on himself in the Greek, he has to curse on something. And the only thing we have for him to curse on is Jesus himself. So there's undoubtedly in this place, he is cursing Jesus. And cursing Jesus means that he is cursing him, literally, and to swear, "I do not know this man of whom you speak." Now, that is a powerful thing because when you curse God, there's only one way of forgiveness, and that is the slain lamb. This is a high-handed crime. This is the highest-handed crime you could do in ancient Israel. This is as bad as what Judas did. He has cursed God. He has cursed Jesus in cursing Jesus. And he honestly doesn't know of the man of whom you speak. This is the interesting irony. He thinks he's following a militant Messiah, even though Jesus has never given him any reason to believe that. He is no different than anyone around him. And at this point, he is cursing Jesus, just like the nation, just like everyone else. This man who was the closest, who stayed the closest to the end, he represents disciples who do not understand who God is. And when he's sitting there and he is being arrested and he's not violently reacting, he's not overthrowing the temple court, he's not overthrowing the system, Peter really doesn't understand this guy. He doesn't understand because he didn't understand the suffering servant in Isaiah, what the prophets were pointing to. He was looking at the cultural expectation. So this is a high-handed crime. This is an amazing thing. And so he just does this. He's just cursed him. You can imagine this. He's cursing out to save himself, cursing God. And what happens? The rooster crows a second time. All of a sudden, it all comes back to him. And he remembered how Jesus said to him, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And this word he broke down and wept is he had a breakdown. It's not just like a little cry. He has a massive regret. All of a sudden, everything's fallen apart. His whole world's fallen apart. He has cursed God. There's no hope to come back from that any more than Judas if there isn't a slain lamb. And Peter realizes he is done for. He is done for in this world and the next at this point. Remember that. Peter doesn't just grieve the fact that he has let Jesus down. He has now let down his whole hope in the eschaton. Okay? So, what does this all mean? Well, I think what's going on here is the problem with Peter has always been, even though he will say you are the Son of God, or he will call him the Messiah, he still has the wrong view of what that is. And that's what is, everyone needs to convert out of that, even religious people. Now, Jesus had prophesied this, a physical prophecy, when the storm came. And this is one of the most misunderstood texts and has been preached, in my opinion, the poorest. Peter, when he is on the water and he has to walk on the water, he is not doing a heroic act of faith. He is trying to be like God. So let's go back to it, and we'll see how that prophecy was fulfilled here. We have to go to Matthew's gospel because Mark doesn't actually highlight this particular activity. And immediately Jesus spoke to them on the water. Take heart, ego eimi. Remember, we talked about I am. Of course, who walks on the water, who calms the water, it's always God. Who brings order out of chaos, it's always God. Do not be afraid. And Peter says to him, Lord, if it is you, or if you are the Son of God. Who is the one that before Matthew only questions his identity? It is the Satan figure in the wilderness. Remember that Jesus has called Peter the Satan by this point because he doesn't want to go to Israel, because he thinks their lives are going to be in danger, because he wants a chaotic revolt. Remember, the Satan figure offers him the empires of the world through revolution in the temptations. And now you've got Peter acting out the temptation of the world, the chaos. And he says, if it is you, command me to come out to you on the water. And that is something only God does. So Jesus is going to show him now. This is a lesson to learn. Come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked in the water and came to Jesus. What's interesting is people are shocked by that. But let us always remember that Adam was created in God's image. And so what that means is that Adam was supposed to be God's presence on earth, on his creation. He was his image. He was supposed to be his very present. So I'm not as shocked that this could happen. Of course, Jesus can let him do that, but he has to show him something. He tries to be like God. He even gets out a little bit. I can't help but think of the Tower of Babel. If they keep building this thing, they're going to start becoming like God. You've got this moment where he actually starts looking like God. But when he saw the wind, and here's the chaos, right? He sees the chaos. He was afraid and began to sink. He cried out, Lord Jesus, save me. Now, going back to what just happened, he says, I'm going to die with you. He's going to be great and heroic. He's going to be like God. And then the reality comes, and he sees the chaos. And of course, what happens is, in the end, he has to cry out to Jesus, Lord, save me. He will do that in the end of John. We get that highlighted. Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him and said, "Oh, you of little faith," or why did you doubt? The question here is not the amount of faith he built up in himself. The question is, he has such a little understanding of God. His faith is so little. He has such a little view of who God is and what he's about. And the question is, Jesus doesn't ask him why you doubt in the sense of there was wind, but why do you doubt who God is and who you are? Because your faith is wrong. That's the problem. You placed it in the wrong place. You placed it in yourself. And this is the God that overcomes, and you have to put your faith in him. And that's what Peter ultimately will do. But right now, this is the ultimate incredible failure of Peter, this text. This is where he has lost all confidence in himself. This is a sad, tragic moment. And of course, when they got in the boat, the wind ceased, and they will acclaim him to be the Son of God. So this is the moment where you see who God really is and who Peter is not. So, questions. This is a tough text to handle. It's hard to get your mind around Peter cursing God in this section. He does not, again, curse himself. He curses God in the Greek. And so here's the thing that I think really makes us have to really get into the depth of the cross. Peter fails terribly here to the point of cursing Jesus. What went wrong? How did he get to this place? And why did he doubt, as Jesus asked? I kind of answered that, but you should have that discussion. And I suppose we should have that discussion about why people walk away from Jesus. Is it always because they failed to believe in Jesus, or is it because they failed to believe in the Jesus they've been told about that isn't true, or have created in their own head? That's something to think about. The amazing grace of the cross is shown most starkly by Peter's failures. Why does Jesus' death have to happen to deal with such high-handed sin? I remind you again that this sin that he does, cursing God, can only be dealt with by the slain lamb. It has to be a sacrifice. There has to be atonement here because you have given yourself completely over. Peter is as big a failure as everyone else. All of us are the same. And we all have to come to the point where we only can rely on the cross. And here Peter shows us why. All right. Peter and Judas both sinned equally. I want you to understand there was no difference in cultural or from a kingdom perspective. Both deserved death, culturally and from a king perspective, not just in this world, but in the next, in the new world, in the kingdom that was coming. So the question is, what in the end was the difference between them? That's something you should ask yourself. What does this mean for humans today? My point being this, Jesus died for the cosmos. What was the difference between these two in relation to that and their perspective? And what does that mean for humans today? If Jesus truly died for all, what keeps some people in and out? All right? Have a great day.